Welcome back to the All Things AI podcast. Here with me today is Jack Brewster, the founder and CEO of Newsreel, an app seeking to rebuild the digital commons and help people understand more about the world and themselves. Jack is also a former Fulbright scholar, and he's previously written for the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and Time magazine, among many others. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about all things AI and others.
Yeah, and I think your background as a journalist is going to be really awesome here because, and I actually saw the post that you made, I think just maybe about an hour or two ago about like
Mm.
AI and like kind of like the slop content that's being created. And I think it's extremely timely that we're discussing this today. So let's get right into it. I think the first thing I want to discuss is like newsreel and then maybe move more into like some open-ended questions about like AI literacy. So I guess like, do you want to contextualize like what the digital commons is for the audience?
Yeah, first stepping back, I think like what newsreel is too. I started it in some ways not in response to AI, but AI has just made the problem worse. But because people feel really overwhelmed by information today, and the sources that we're using to understand the world now, our modern day newsstand, are TikTok and Instagram. For people your age, for people my age, it's the same thing. And so when I talk about digital commons, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about how people are interacting with one another online and how they're using those tools to understand themselves and what other people believe. So I feel like we have gotten pretty far away from what like I remember the digital commons being just 10 years ago, and I don't think it's moving in a good direction. And so that's why I started Newsreel. I wanted to build a platform for the next generation to basically understand the world and themselves more deeply, but in formats that they're used to. So I'm not asking them to go read 1,500 word articles. But I'm also not going to make this platform be a place where they see marketing and AI slop. So I think it's very timely for any discussion about AI, particularly now, just in the moment that we live in.
For sure. And I love the work that you're doing because like I guess like this kind of sentiment right now is we need it right now more than ever before, but it's also been a
Mhm.
problem that's like been long in the coming. So I guess like if you're like a user on Newsreel, like what does that experience look like?
Yeah, I sometimes I like to say that it's like if like Duolingo and the New York Times had a baby. Other times I like to say it's like if TikTok had substance. Like I think that's the easiest way to think about it. It's hard to explain unless you actually go use it. But the sort of inspiration behind it was to make understanding information more deeply fun. Like we wanted to lower the level of understanding and like. I think that there's all these newsletters that have popped up, like Morning Brew and the Skim and others that have tried to make sort of like understanding like easier and more fun. And now it's just like a part of like so many newsletters on your inbox, and it's just another problem as well. And so I thought like, why are we trying to fight Instagram and TikTok when we can just build a better version ourselves? So it's social, it's gamified, it includes many different formats like video, text, infographics. It quizzes you, it polls you. And a newsreel post is only valid if it does three things. It's produced by a human that's vetted. It helps you understand something more deeply, and it invites a response. So it asks you to take a poll, to answer a quiz question, or to leave your response itself.
Yeah, I'm interested in like I guess like how this like whole process works of like getting content on Newsreel. Like, is it like
Mhm.
manually vetted? Do you guys have some sort of like algorithms to do it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now we launched with just like we hired a bunch of journalists like in-house ourselves, and now we're expanding to like other like high value creators or journalists that we vet. So they have to agree to those principles about like that they're one, not going to post AI generated content or marketing, that they're going to post content that illuminates rather than, distracts or tries to go viral, and they have to add some kind of action from the user, so like a poll or a quiz or the like. I'm trying to set up a system where, we are basically like guarding before you join. Like it's a privilege to post on Newsreel. It's not just like anyone can come and publish on here. And I think there's other apps that have done this, and I just don't understand why social media apps don't. I mean, like we used to have even like the blue check on Twitter, and that's totally gone now. It just doesn't make any sense to me that like you go on these platforms and you have no idea who is a journalist, who's an influencer, who's trying to sell something, who's AI generated. So I want to make that a core tenet of Newsreel, especially since it's more like about substance and news rather than just like can we keep you entertained, which is what
Yeah.
social media platforms
I
do.
think this is kind of like stepping aside, but I think you can actually buy the check on Twitter, right? Isn't that how it works
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
and that kind
you
of
can just pay for it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that kind of removes the point of like why it was there in the first place. I think the other platforms still have a relatively like decent, but like considering like how fast things come out on Twitter, I think that would be one of those platforms. Maybe you could argue even more than the others, so it would need like some sort of verification. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess like what's your take on like platforms like Reddit in that case? Because like I think like to some extent, people when they like post on Reddit or when like read things, it's at least my sentiment was that it's more so like human based. Is that the case, or is it
Mhm.
more like is it also going into like that AI direction?
It definitely is under threat from AI. Like there are a lot of bots on there and a lot of AI generated content. And there's been a lot of like research and reporting on that. So like I think any platform that has reach and a unvetted like user sign up is going to have this problem of AI generated content. Like it's just that is the reality we live in, and like we're not at the place right now where I think we've developed like good enough guardrails for like vetting who's human and who's not, because there's also a lot of people who can join as a human and then just start like a bunch of like start like an AI content farm, like
Just bots.
content. Yeah, bots. But as you were talking about the monk thing, and I posted about earlier. I basically just found this like AI account that is created this like AI generated monk videos at scale and is just pumping them out on Instagram. Well, that was probably a person, right, who started that and now is just publishing only AI content. So, like there's difference between like complete like bot farms, right, that just go out and like create like accounts themselves, and then people who just start them as a human and then pivot to, publishing AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is just like it's so easy to like monetize on these platforms if you can get like followers to begin with, right? Like it's just like all you need to do is develop that follower base. And I think like with AI content, not only is it becoming easier, but it's also like as a teen, like I myself use many of these social media platforms. If you go on Instagram, for example, like which has like reels and everything, like I think even like a year and a half, 2 years ago, like it would be fairly rare that you'd see AI reels and things like that. But now
Mhm.
like it's gotten to the point where like if you like scroll through like maybe like 30, 40, or 50% of the things that you're seeing, like depending because like once you view some sort of AI content, like the algorithm once again recommends more of it. So
Yeah.
it's like pushing us toward like it's like just like channeling everybody towards that place where I don't necessarily think they should want to go. So I definitely think like that's a problem on like all of these platforms. I agree with you. Um, like I think like this is kind of like crossed my mind a couple times as we've been talking about like AI generated content, but like there's like AI detectors out there, and so like this is like
Mhm.
a pretty hot topic, especially in like education and like college, because you want to make sure that people are like not obviously like getting slop, but instead like real content. So what's your take on like existing AI detectors? Because like they seem like a necessity, but at the same time like they have a lot
Mhm.
of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I've used GPT-0 and some of those. I just, it's really, really hard to do until we have like better watermarking systems. Like, it's just, we're kind of at the mercy of these companies until there's either like legislation that's passed that mandates it, or they decide that they're gonna be more stringent about watermarking their content. It's I haven't found them to be that good, and it's just a game of whack-a-mole because as soon as we get some watermarking system or there's some detector that comes out, then somebody's just going to create another model based on one of the the main models that we use every day to create a non-detectable like LLM. So,
Yeah,
there's even like, you can go on Google and just type in like human eyes might
humanizer.
text. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's like websites that will just do this for you, like make it like sound more human. So I'm not really a big backer of these detectors. I think you need to find other ways of, if you're a teacher, of getting students to not use AI. Because I mean, I think that, there's also, I have a problem with like completely ignoring it, especially as a journalist, right? Like I'm not an AI like optimist, nor am I like an AI pessimist. Like I think you need to be curious about these new technologies, and I think you need to use them, and I think you need to understand how they work. I mean, that is just what being a good journalist and being a good student is all about, right? Is being a student of the world. And so I don't think the answer is to completely shut them out either and not use them in your class. Like I think if students are using it, it's a symptom, right? It's a symptom of a problem that students may be feeling, whereas like they need to use these tools to get an assignment done to get a good grade. Like I think you need to start there, right, as a teacher and say, like, what can I do to make this assignment more fun, more engaging? What can I do to sort of like encourage my students to not use AI when I want them to, instead of just like banning it after the fact or like detecting it after the fact? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like it's not going to go anywhere. Like whether we like it or not, it's going to stay for a very, very long time, and it's already infiltrated its way into education. So, like,
Yeah.
I completely agree with like all those points that you're making. Next thing I want to talk about is like I actually read a story about you making a AI powered like propaganda machine in just 2 days for I think it was $105. And I guess it's also kind of ties into like the post that you made earlier because like that's kind of what
Hmm.
the monkey guy was also doing. But like
Hmm.
should we be scared of AI's like content generation abilities as like people who use these platforms?
Yeah, we definitely should be. I mean, we should be afraid of humans, right? I mean, like, first of all, like, there are good humans and there are bad humans. And the printing press was used for good, and it also was used for bad. The first, like, witch trials, like the mass execution of quote unquote witches, was helped by the printing press because it allowed people to spread that information more widely, misinformation about who was a witch and who was not a witch. And that was technology being used by humans to do bad things, and led to like a lot of people being killed in the 1600s and the like. So I, think there's always like when technology gets in the wrong hands, it's used for good and it's used for bad, right? It may help cure cancer, but it also might lead to the mass spread of misinformation and disinformation. So yes, we should be scared because AI is a force multiplier, right? It's not unlike any other invention like the printing press, but AI is really, like, I believe it's an inflection point, right? Like I do believe that this is like going to exponentially increase the amount of content, whereas the internet, the printing press, all these other inventions like also did, but this I believe to be more of a force multiplier than like the metaverse was for increasing like the spread of disinformation and misinformation, right? Because like I now have the power of hundreds or thousands of writers or video content producers at my disposal instead of having to pay them, right? I mean, that's a huge, huge, huge technological like innovation. And that means that there's just going to be a lot of misinformation, disinformation out there, and that means it's much harder for these platforms, editors, journalists to respond to it, right? And
For sure.
until we find really good ways for AI to combat AI generated misinformation, disinformation, we're gonna run into a lot of problems, which we're already seeing. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and I think like I really like the printing press and like example that you brought in because that was like the first time like there's always gonna be like positives and negatives to all these. Like printing
Hmm.
press like democratizes knowledge, right? It's not like something
Hmm.
that's restricted like before. But at the same time, like if going into the wrong hands, like the wrong humans, it led to the spread of misinformation like you yourself described. And I
Yep.
think yeah, like I also like I guess like resonate with the fact that like you're basically like AI because of how like we went from like everything being on paper like then now we're on computers and like the internet and everything and now we have like things that can put out content like faster than we've ever seen before. So it's
Mhm.
just like I think that's really the multiplier that like you were describing. So I think we've done a really good job of like contextualizing what the problem is and exactly what's happening right now. Like the last thing that I want to talk about is like kind of like how we can maybe like look into fixing this. So like do you
Yeah.
think that like there's multiple angles that like we can bring a solution to like AI guided misinformation from? This could come from like, for example, the government, like the social media platforms, teaching media literacy skills. So like what do you think are some of the best solutions to like AI induced misinformation?
I think we need to fight for nuance. I think we need to punch back with context, and we need to stop being so scared as journalists to fight back when it comes to that. Like, we have really just completely ceded our information landscape to these attention seekers that are peddling absolute crap, and we're just still fighting about how the world changed and how we hate that. And if I have one mission as a journalist in 2026 and as someone who's 29 years old trying to change the world for the better, it's that like we cannot go into this like being scared. We have to try and fight back, and the way to do that is to build new platforms and new tools that combat the world of misinformation, disinformation, and the just complete slop mess that we're in. And so that's why I'm building Newsreel, for instance. But I also think like for other people, this looks like demanding more out of the information landscape that that we're in, that we're the platforms that we're using. I mean, it's ridiculous that it took however many years on Twitter or X to get the country of origin of an account. About 3 months ago, X added that as a feature, so now you can go see the account, like where it was actually created. It took, when was Twitter created? I don't even remember. 2012, 2011, like, it was
Around then.
2010, maybe something like that. So it took like, 15, 16 years to get that. I mean, that is insane. I mean, that is just the most basic thing that somebody could add. That I think is one of the most powerful things that we can be doing and demanding from our information landscape is just information about the sources that we're using to get our information. Like, why are we not demanding that? Why are we not, when somebody spreads something that may or may not be false and we're not sure, asking more questions about like, who are you? Like, who is this monk that is, pumping out AI generated videos? If I had any kind of background information from the social media platforms, I would be more skeptical of that account. And that's called pre-bunking, and that's a really nerdy word for it, but I think that's one of the best ways that we can fight back as journalists, as readers. The second thing, I think is that I just read this, I did a video on it too, like this New York Magazine article today about like increasing the amount of friction that we have in our lives. The author calls it friction maxing. And I've been talking about that, maybe not as well as the author has, for a long time, about just how we need to be more intentional about our information diet. And, if I hear one more person say the media is biased, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, that is just such a lazy way of talking about like the problems of the internet and our information landscape today. You know what that tells me when you say the media is biased? It tells me you're not reading. It tells me you're not reading a variety of sources, because anyone with half a brain would know that there's many different news outlets in the media, and even in the mainstream media, tons of different opinions and different ways of covering the news. And you just need to read more and be more intentional about your media habits, not just skim the headlines on a news feed. So that's two things. I have more, but I don't want to bore your listeners.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are definitely like the things that we need to work on implementing. And I think it's a collective effort that needs to come from like maybe like AI companies, journalists, and the people themselves that are like consuming this media. But
Yeah.
yeah, last thing I want to ask, and this could be kind of like a quick fire question, but like we've kind of talked about like I guess like how AI is like really a problem in a lot of
Mhm.
cases. Is there anything that you like to use AI for? And if so, like what's the favorite use case?
Yeah, oh man, I use it for a lot of things. I mean, first one, I mean, I so building Newsreel as an app means that in 2026 I can have an idea about a new feature, go to Figma AI, mock it up in 30 seconds and show my designer and my engineer. That's wild to me. Like it's crazy how you can be like, I have a vision for what this should look like. I have no idea how to design it, no idea how to build it, but I can show somebody who does know how to do it and build it and like vibe code it that fast. I mean, like vibe coding is great for like showing off things to people, maybe not for like implementing yet. Like it still has like I couldn't just build an app like start to finish. Maybe I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be that good.
Yeah,
But I can like take it to my engineer and my designer, and they can build it extremely quickly. Like that is
sure.
such a cool use case of it, and I just don't think people know that. Second, like take a ton of information as a journalist and di either digest it or process it extremely quickly. Like, there was so many mundane tasks as a journalist that like now are just made so much faster because of AI, like when it comes to research. I absolutely love using it for that. Like that is, I mean, you can build tables, you can search like people using all these different tools. I just don't think like journalists or like people in general are curious enough about that. Like that is, it's an amazing thing to have at your fingertips. It's like having the power of like 10 interns just like sitting next to you just pumping out research. So I love like doing using it for those two things among others.
Yeah, and I will still stick by my like notion that I don't I can't recall the last time we've seen something like this powerful. Maybe that was the internet, but like since then I don't think there's like anything that has changed our world that much in like that rapid of a time. But it's simply amazing and scary at the same time. But I think this was an extremely timely discussion, so thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.